still it's better than nothing. Yes.
Hey, Kim. Hi.
Sorry, just got done with work.
There you are. Right here. John Ziegler.
Megan,
Very nice to meet you.
I was like, Megan, yes.
All right, I'm going to try to call our meeting to order, if we could. The June 3rd meeting of the Budget Committee for the town of New London. Welcome to all. We have a big agenda for tonight, a lot to cover, and I look forward to really robust dialogue, particularly around our process document and how it might affect how we do our work in the coming budget year. As a starting point, I want to first welcome John Ziegler, our newest member, and allow each of us the opportunity to introduce ourselves in any way you choose, so that John can at least be familiar with the cast of characters he has now joined by public election, of course. So I'll start. I'm Charlie Kelsey. I am in my 4th year on the Budget Committee, chaired last year, and live in New London. Long background in business life, great, thankfully retired, so it allows time to do great work with this committee. Live in New London, of course, and with my wife, Cynthia. So why don't we just go to you?
Okay.
Here.
Look, do I have to? Okay. Sorry. So Kim Ilg. I also live in New London with my 2 teenagers, one of whom is graduating in 2 days, and the other one who's graduating next year. I work at Mascoma Bank as a residential loan officer. Oh, that's the response I like to see.
I was only there 20 plus years.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yes, it's an amazing organization. So yeah, but I've been here for 18 years, and what else am I missing in my description?
Second year on the budget?
Oh, this is my 2nd year on the Budget Committee. Okay, there we go.
So, John, when you speak, press the button on the microphone, pull it close to you so all can hear it. No, just once it's green, you are live, and this is a recorded meeting, as all our meetings are.
I'm John Ziegler. My wife and I moved to New London the end of 2020 after 26 years in the Upper Valley, but on the Vermont side of the river. I have a daughter that lives in Boston, a daughter that lives in Scotland, and my oldest daughter and her husband and my 2 grandchildren live in New London. So we've been through the town many times. I spent most of my career in banking. I spent my last 20 plus years at Mascoma Bank. I was the senior commercial credit officer for the last 6 years or so of that job, and a commercial lender for most of the time prior to that. And the first motion I'd like to make is to get rid of that song. Yeah, that's what I said. It's a new guy's seat.
I'm like,
Charlie's out
like,
to get
can we
me.
scoot over? Here.
No.
No,
That's why I was
seriously.
sitting back here.
No, but seriously, like, we can scoot over.
Yeah,
And
okay.
you
Yeah.
and you would not be blinded. Yeah.
So thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you all.
I'm Cynthia Roussis. No, that's okay. I'm Cynthia Roussis. I've lived in New London for 3 years now. It's my 2nd year on the Budget Committee. I was in Massachusetts prior to New Hampshire and New Jersey prior to that, and other places like New York for a while. I have a legal background, worked in that area in patent law for a couple of years, then worked on Wall Street. Most recently, I've done election integrity legal work, and I'm involved with some other political work these days. Thank you.
Hi, John. My name is Karen Epstein. I've been in New London now, owned a home for 10 years, and have lived full-time up here around 5 years. I have a daughter that lives in Boston. My husband and I both live in New London, but we spend a lot of time in Boston helping take care of the new grandchild. And I have a background in banking and in finance, this is my third year on the Budget Committee. I look forward to serving with you. Thank you.
John, my name is John Tilley. I'm from New London. I raised both my daughters here. One lives in San Francisco, the other in DC, and wish they were here, but they aren't. That's the way that goes. I just finished my second full year, so however we're counting, 2, 3, something like that. And I run YMCA Camp Coniston, which is right outside of town. It's a large nonprofit that works with children.
I'm Lynn Lewis. I'm finance officer for the town. I've lived here for, wait, let me count on my fingers. I've lived here since 2019, previously in Pennsylvania and Jersey. My husband, though, was born and raised here. His parents were born and raised here. So, and I'm basically your support. So anything you guys need, that's what I provide.
Hi, John. My name is Ashley Seawold. I'm the town administrator here in New London. I am just up on my 1 year as town administrator. I am a native New Londoner. I went away for about 20 years, but still had about a foot and a half in the community for those 20 years, and then moved back permanently a few years ago. And my family is, both my mom and uncle are native New Londoners, and my grandparents, who are no longer with us, moved up here in the 30s from Connecticut. So I've got some deep roots here in the community as well. Happy to have you here. Oh, you've already got one.
So I'm Meg Brown. I have been living in New London since 2017. Our oldest was only 10 months at the time. I now have 3 young kids. They're 9, 7, and 5, and in the Kearsarge school system. I'm a pharmacist by training. I work for Pfizer Oncology and also a U.S. Army veteran.
Thank you. I'm Lou Boda, and let's see, we've been in London since 2011, and before that, besides 17 years in Washington, D.C., which I'm rapidly catching on, I think, in my time in London. My life has been out of a suitcase. I was a former refugee. I had a military career. Then I had a civil service career. Then we were, Pennsylvania. And then finally we decided that we were going to come to this beautiful bubble that we called New London. And I just love volunteering and being part of the community. And besides the budget committee, emergency management, let's see, next year we'll be the district governor for Rotary International for District 7870, 62 clubs, so I'm happy.
Hi, John. Chris Lorio. I've been on the budget committee now for this is my 13th year. I've been chair for 3 or 4 and vice chair last year. Moved to New London in 2007 when my wife was pregnant with our twins, who just graduated last week from Proctor Academy, and I have a third at Proctor. So I am very motivated for work and paying for tuition for children. I work at a pharmaceutical company down in Boston. There 3 days a week, and I love New London and love giving my time to the community. Born and raised in New Orleans, moved around the country with work, find myself here and loving it.
Thank you all for your service and the opportunity to work together. I'm so delighted. We have a committee of really dedicated and capable and diverse in experience, and look forward to leveraging that. I was thinking about the year that we are approaching, and one of the things that this committee did was prompted by three questions that were posed to try to garner some perspective of committee members relative to what we thought we did well, what we thought we could do better, and if we could change one thing in our process, what would that one thing be? Those 3 questions were also shared with the Board of Selectmen and all the department heads for their feedback. That feedback was pulled together into the document that was shared with everyone prior to this meeting, and also which you have hard copy of. And I think it's a great reflection of perspectives and a really rich document that we can sink our teeth into to determine how we would like to proceed. So I thank you all for the thoughtfulness that was given to that, and I think it will serve us well as we do our work today, because that will be the primary focus of our discussion. Before we go to that, we have some administrative things to do. One of them is to adopt the minutes from the Thursday, February 12th, 2026 meeting. Those were distributed in advance to everyone for your review. And I need a motion
So moved?
and a second.
Second.
And any discussion or input to changes? Yeah.
Thank you, under new revenue total motion, second page, 4th
Yes.
item down, Tilly spelled incorrectly. Just put an E in there.
Okay. So noted.
Lindsay's name is misspelled on
L-Y. L-I.
L-Y.
Oh, L-Y. It is?
Sorry. Sorry, they're two different, it's 2 different conversations. Sorry, 2 different conversations. I was sidelining because I thought you were done. Yeah. My bad.
So yours
So,
is to-
so mine is that Lindsay's first name is spelled Lynddsay. So
Okay.
I just wanted to update that for the official.
Thank you. Any other adjustments, changes? All right. With those changes recognized and noted, I'd like to call a vote to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed. These minutes are adopted, and I thank you.
I would normally abstain.
Yes,
Because I obviously wasn't at the meeting.
John, that's absolutely correct.
I am also abstaining because I wasn't at the meeting.
Cynthia, okay. Okay, thank you. Our next order of business is nomination and election of a chair for the year and a vice chair. So I would entertain a motion for chair.
I nominate Charles Kelsey for chair.
Third.
Okay. Any discussion? Any other nominations? Really?
You're stuck.
Yes. Please.
I'm not nominating anyone else. I just want to, before we get to the next one, just with my schedule and everything with work, I prefer not to be a chair or vice chair this year, just in case someone gets the idea, to nominate me next. So just wanted to.
That's too bad. I was going to do that. All right, I guess I need to do what?
If we can just have everybody vote to take the motion to approve you as chair.
Yes,
I know
that's
we've
right.
had a motion and a second, but if we can have the full vote.
Yes. So can we have a vote for the nomination of Charles Kelsey as chair? All in favor?
Yay.
How about opposed? I'll abstain, of course. All right, I need a motion, and I accept. Thank you. I need a motion for nominating vice chair. And with Chris not wishing to assume that role, then we need a vice chair. Crickets.
Karen, would you be interested?
I think I will pass on that. Thank you.
Well, Chris, maybe you could talk a little bit about how arduous the role is.
It's, I mean, it's not forgiving. I mean, honestly, there's not a ton. It's obviously to support Charlie if he has any needs. If he's unable to attend a meeting, you would just chair the meeting, which any of us who have been to enough meetings could help with. So I would say that it's not really a ton of time. I just know last year I was super busy. I'm going to be busy again this year. I felt as if I wasn't able to give the time I wanted to, so I don't want to be in that situation again and, give what the community needs, which is the reason I am not accepting. But I think any of you would be great at vice chair besides me.
Lou, may I speak? Yeah. Lou has, I think, 2 years ago, you were vice chair. Were you, Lou?
Yes, my problem is that.
Microphone.
See,
Thank you.
my situation is that with my being the governor, or district governor-elect, I'm going to be very, very tied up with some of that. I mean, visiting 62 clubs and basically, I mean, everything from legal issues to things. It's going to be. I am definitely going to do 100% as a member of the budget committee, but having another 100% as vice chair would be a little bit tricky.
And the candidate list narrows. Rich? No.
I don't think so.
No. We could,
I was like, can our newest member?
Can I do this?
I will. Let me comment just from the standpoint of having been chair and now re-elected, that Chris and I spent not a lot of time working on anything. When I had a question or needed some advice or was not able to attend a meeting, that's when I leaned on him. So that's really the role. And it's not a role that therefore, because you're vice chair, it automatically is presuming you're going to become chair for the next year. It's simply that we have.
Instead of vice president, it's like a revolving thing.
Yes, so I think if there's hesitation relative to time, commitment, and work, I wouldn't let that stand in the way, frankly. So I would look to Meg and see if it's something you would like to do. I mean, you've been on the committee for a long time, or Cynthia, or John. So between the three of you, I would, and I'm kind of looking at you, Meg, saying, would you, and if you would, or wouldn't, and it's okay. Don't feel any pressure whatsoever, please.
I think my challenge gets to be when I'm going to be here with my work schedule.
Okay, fair enough. I mean,
honest.
that's fair enough.
I'm unfortunately in the same boat, just took a brand-new full-time job.
Okay.
So it's going to be a little struggling with that.
I like you, John.
A lot more than you did 30 seconds ago, too. No, so I mean, everybody, you all know I travel a little at that time of the year, so that was my hesitation. I think I may have one pretty big trip that I have to take to straighten something out, a program that we have overseas. But I mean, if you think that if we can work around that, I'll do it for a year, and then I'll do what Chris did, which is give it up next year.
We don't,
Maybe we'll get.
sorry, Lynn and I just
I can do
sidebarred. We don't technically need one. We're not required.
A chair is required.
Yes,
but
a chair
vice
is required, but
secretary- It's not required, it's recommend it and
You know that.
I would offer my help to you if there's something that comes up and you're unable to.
At like I think it was the Thanksgiving time or early December, I think that's when I have to go, which I know we are not
Yeah, yeah.
there anyway, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's,
Okay.
I nominate John Tilley.
Second.
All in
Same.
favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
It comes with a salary this year. Did you know?
Popcorn and
I'll
fruit.
donate that to charity.
Okay.
$1
Thank you.
more than Charles'
Thanks,
dollar.
John.
I think it points to this really is a team effort. We all need to lean in, step in, and help. And there's some formalities with running a meeting, and you've seen me bumble along in that process, and it certainly is part of what the role would be. But I think we've all really started. I thought we had a great year, and I think we've got a great position to strengthen and do good work going forward. So, John, thank you. And let's move to our primary topic of discussion. There is a document. You have a full copy, hard copy in front of you. It's dated April 16, 2026. Final. There were several, and it's labeled so just simply because we had a lot of input, clarification, follow-up, just to make sure we had it was accurate. I took the liberty of numbering the documents so that we could focus our discussion in reference to particular sections. And as we do that, I will try to reference it. And as you provide input, if there's a section you're referring to in a comment, it would be helpful for you to give the number and the associated paragraph that may be alphabetized. And if you'll indulge me, what I thought we could do as a starting point, if you agree with this, is there are certain sections of this that I feel are their opinion, but it's also suggestion, recommendation, and some of it is administrative in nature. One of those things, just as an example, is minutes, how we might think about minutes as we go forward as a committee. And I think that's an administrative item. There may be input that we want to get around that item, but I, as a chair, would be responsible to make sure whatever we agree upon and also meets our statutorial requirements, that happens. So what I was going to suggest to us, if you're comfortable as a starting point, that I can, I'm very intimately familiar with this document, having typed it all in and all that stuff, but going through it and addressing the ones that I think I can address quickly and the ones that would require more discussion, deliberation, that's where we focus our time. If everybody is comfortable with that, I'd proceed that way. Are we good to do it that way? Okay. So with that in mind, there's item number 5 on page 3, find the balance between oversight and inquiry. And the comment there is apt. It came from a couple of members of this committee, and so it's a shared viewpoint, and that is we tended at points in time in our process of, quote, getting into the weeds, getting into a level of detail, and also maybe entering areas that were not in the purview of the committee. And I think that, John, you were one of the people that made that comment, and I thought it was spot on. And I think it's my responsibility and then a collective responsibility for us to stay focused on a topic, but not overdo or go to a level of detail where it really is not material to the subject. So I see that as a facilitation requirement as chair of the committee, and would work to do that. And if everybody's satisfied with that approach to that particular input, That's how I would view it. Improving committee member attendance, which is item 6 on page 3. This was a discussion that came up frequently. One of the things that we are going to try to do today is arrive at a schedule, at least a preliminary schedule, that may need some refinement, that also would be condensed, fewer meetings potentially, more concentrated potentially in terms of time, and really focused from an agenda standpoint. And when we get into the discussion of the schedule, I think I could talk more, and we can talk more about topics, intent, and how we want to think about scheduling those things as we flesh out a schedule for the coming year. Because the feedback that I received and was reflected here is that if I knew the schedule far enough in advance, particularly those of you who have full-time jobs, you can help shape the schedule based on that. And secondly, once it's established, it can be helpful to you, hopefully, in establishing that with your employer or your obligations with your work. The other part of this was our attendance was sporadic during the past year, so we had some meetings where we were just at a quorum, and actually we had some meetings we didn't have a quorum, which impedes the ability of the committee to do its work. And all voices are really important. All perspectives are really important because they shape and form how we think, how we act, and how we make decisions. So I am encouraged by let's get a schedule, and we're going to talk about how can we think about tightening that as we get into that section of this of the agenda on that item. The second related item is about what was referred to as a hybrid approach or remote meeting attendance. Ashley and I have spent time talking about this at length. I have voiced the perspective that we're challenged in today's world with multiple demands and the things that jobs require and families require. And there are circumstances that don't allow attendance, but we have technology that could aid and support that. So there's work that's been done to date about that I think I need, Ashley, your perspective on, if you will, help us with that. Our desire may not be fully accommodated, but I think we should talk and would like your input on what we could do. So is that something you want to do now?
It's up to you.
I would love you to do that now.
So we will have a policy by the start of the budget season. We don't have one right now. There's quite a bit of detail that we need to work out administratively. Not every employee has a laptop. Who's going to come and be the person running the Zoom? Are we allowing the public? How do we actually get the Zoom to work in this room with also recording the meeting? We do not budget for a large number of overtime hours. We have $200 for hourly employees, which is the majority of employees, for overtime in the year. So then how do we navigate who's coming? Is that then just department heads? So anyway, there's quite a bit of detail that we need to iron out administratively at the town offices, but we will have all of that figured out before the start of the next budget season.
What last year when we Zoomed, we used Zoom, I should say. We utilized Lou's computer, and he uploaded the link, and it seemed to work, but it was available only in Sid Crook, the issue being that this was a larger venue and the primary venue for budget meetings for public attendance.
Yep.
And recording capabilities.
Yep.
That are in this particular system.
Yep.
So as we look forward to that versus, and let me add to that, I think what we've talked about is we've been pretty self-sufficient as a committee, doing our minutes and also taking responsibility for the administrative side of the committee's work. with minimal, frankly, minimal use of administrative time at least. So going forward, is that versus it need be a town employee, can it be a member of the committee that has that knowledge and technology available?
Yeah, so I think we're thinking narrowly and rightfully so only about the budget committee. Whatever we do for you, we have to offer to the other 18 committees, commissions, boards. So while you guys are thinking about you, we are thinking holistically on how we manage that. Lou has a license to the town Zoom account. We don't have any more of those. So again, there's just stuff that we need to figure out on how we navigate this, not just for the budget committee, but for all committees, commissions, and boards. And then also, if we allow committee members, at that point, you might as well just offer it to the residents as well to be able to join virtually. So we've got some things to figure out on how we navigate that.
Here, Chris.
Is there any legality for committee members versus public? And I only ask that, and it's not that I don't want the public to participate, but obviously you're going to exponentially increase the number of questions and time if
So-
public members are allowed on Zoom, and also risk that getting out versus just committee members. So I don't know the answer. I just didn't know if there's any.
Yeah, I don't think that legality, no, I think we have a number of examples of what other towns do, and other towns do not allow public comment on the Zoom. But that means that someone has to be sitting there monitoring what is happening on the Zoom. And a lot of towns, if folks want to make a comment, they have to get in their car and come up to the meeting. But if we open it up for members of the committee to participate, then we probably should open it up to the residents as well. And at that point, are we shutting chat off completely where even or members of committees, commissions, and boards can't chat in, like type chat? So there's just these details that we need to figure out. There are specific regulations around what remote attendees from a committee, commission, or board have to do. So you have to announce who else is in the room, where you are. There is question on whether you have to announce why you are remote. Some towns do require that. Whether that is required or not, I need to chase that a little bit. And make sure that you are in a place where you can speak freely. But anybody else who is in the room or within earshot needs to be counted as a member of the public as attending the meeting.
So we're also talking, thank you for that. I'm interjecting, and
Yeah.
other members I certainly want you to weigh in. Personally, from a chair perspective and a member perspective, personal in-person attendance to me is really optimal for the dynamic and for the efficiency of meetings as well. And if there is a circumstance that doesn't allow somebody to attend beyond, I just don't want to go to Whipple Hall tonight for a meeting, I'd rather sit on Zoom and do it. That's not, to me, a good reason or a motivation for us to create remote meeting access. My thought is it's remote meeting access in the case of of non-attendance that might have you out of the country because of job, not because of vacation. You might have an emergency situation that has occurred. Outside of that, in-person attendance is what's expected as well as most desirable because of all the nuances you've just talked about relative to how you manage that remote process. So, other committee thoughts, members' thoughts, questions?
It sounds very much as if Ashley is aware of this, but just for the record, I know that the legislature is not allowed to meet on Zoom, as are some of their committees and some aren't, and the regulations are quite strong, as Ashley's pointing out. So I would just encourage us to make certain that I'd run it across council, whatever it is we're doing, which it sounds like we're doing anyway, but just kind of for the record, I'd like to say that.
Fair enough.
We have communities around us that did open it up for remote participation, and they very quickly took it away. So Sunapee, Newberry started and then stopped almost immediately. And there are various reasons as to why. I'm in a, make a long story short, I am in a group, an email group with all town administrators and town managers across the state. And this has come up multiple times. And so it's actually great. We get a lot of visibility into what other communities are doing. And I've bookmarked all of those emails into a folder. But by and large, most communities do not allow it for various reasons. And I think for us, it's just, how do we manage that at the town offices for all 18, 19 committees, commissions, and boards that we have? So,
Maybe I could make just one more comment. Please. It's more of a, this is an opinion. I think at the end of the day, the only meeting that really matters for attendance is when we vote on the budget. Obviously, every meeting is important. I would say that if you missed a meeting, I'll just use myself as an example, it should be up to that person to read the minutes, to get in touch with another committee member, or, watch the recording if it's recorded. I think that's where sometimes people are like, is this adding inefficient time to meetings because we're just repeating what we did at the last meeting? You weren't here. These questions were already answered. But I do think just at all things being equal, at the end of the day, the most important meeting to plan for is the when we do vote on the budget, because obviously that would take an immense amount of time if we had to do that and somebody was on Zoom, just to get through that whole process. Just the thought. And
Yeah, fair enough. Other comments, questions?
Regarding the chat question, to be able to type in comments, I would imagine any of us participating, or at least my experience being on Zoom, is that if I have a question or comment, I'll express it verbally. So I wonder if the committee would have a problem if we were to say no chat for anybody.
Yeah.
And that might simplify if this is going to work out. Because I think that would be very complicated for anyone monitoring. That might take away the necessity for some kind of heavy monitoring in the meeting.
again, I think that makes sense for this committee, but what we do for you, we have to do for all. And so I'd like
I
that
think it can make, I'm just
policy to
suggesting
be
broadly.
universal.
The other thing is, I think it's reasonable to ask people to, well, we're all adults, so I think if we were missing meetings, we aren't just deciding we don't feel like coming, and to say, it's only if you're out of the country or if it's work. I mean, we all have commitments, and we also have vacations from time to time, and some of those are planned well in advance. I haven't got anything on the books, actually, so I'm pretty wide open right now. But I think to say if someone's on a vacation and they're missing a meeting, that's somehow not making a commitment to this committee it's not realistic. Everyone's
I didn't
here.
mean by my comment and not using vacation as an example that
It just came up last year, I think, here and there, and I think that
life is life.
life
and
is
it's
life.
gonna-
And I think we're all committed by being in the room as much as we can, so.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, if we can't have a quorum because people don't attend, then we've got a problem, because we're going to create more work as a result.
Sorry, that actually is a good point. The other thing that I have a note that I need to follow up on is, I believe you still have to have a quorum in the room, but I need to check on that, especially for voting. But that is a note that I have to follow up on.
Okay. All right, let's, so noted, thank you all for the input. Item number 15 on page 4, adopt Robert's Rules of Order, specifically regarding reconsideration of votes both during and after a meeting. We had a situation last session when a vote was taken, and some members kind of said, I think I want to change my vote. I felt rushed. I wasn't really sure what I was doing. Got caught up in the moment, whatever it might have been. I had that experience myself. There is some guidance that's provided to us in regard to reconsideration. And under Robert's Rules of Order, the reconsideration must come from the prevailing party. So if I voted and I wanted to change and it was different than the prevailing parties, a member of the committee who is on the prevailing party of a vote must make the motion for reconsideration. It cannot come from me because I want to change my vote and I was not part of the prevailing party. That is how Robert Rules of Order work. And I did a little bit of work of research to look at that relative to the Municipal Budget Association, municipal, what's the correct term for that group? Municipal.
NHMA?
Yeah, NHMA.
New Hampshire Municipal Association.
Thank you. And what their recommendations were, and also Article 32, RSA 32, and reconsideration is not in the purview of a group, frankly, to consider as it pertains to at least committees of the nature the Budget Committee is. But the deferral is to Robert's Rules of Order, and we follow Robert's Rules of Order. And as I earlier stated, that's how reconsideration would occur. So secondly, I would add to this that when we got into our voting process, at varying points during varying meetings when we're making decisions that required motion seconds and then votes, at times they were a little rushed. And I think it is my responsibility to slow it down and take the time to make certain we're clear on the motion, the second, and the votes, and that they are correctly recorded, because those must be reflected accurately in our minutes for obvious reasons, statutorily as well. And second to that is there are going to be votes on items that are controversial. And there was comment about, I feel uncomfortable that, my vote might, if I vote in a way that doesn't go with the flow of the majority, how will I be viewed by members of the committee and members of the public? Well, that's a problem, but that's frankly that is what we will face. And all I can tell you from my personal viewpoint and suggestion is you're going to have that discomfort at times, and that's okay. It's part of it. But don't let that fear or concern interfere with your thinking and your vote. Your vote is the merit of your vote. And you have your reasons, and they are justified, period. End of discussion. And if ever there is a feeling that a vote was viewed adversely by the public, that's the public's option. They can view you that way. They can view us this way as a group or as individuals. So that's the reconsideration item, and how I think we can think about it, and also how I can help manage it.
Charlie?
Yes, please.
One note on that, I applaud using Robert's Rules of Order. Of course, the chair does have the responsibility of presiding over the meeting and then interpreting what's fair, making certain everybody is heard. In my recollection, though, one of the problems was not as much around firsts and seconds, but around amendments to motions and then what to do with the previous motion and how to calculate that into the amended motion. And so just pointing out that we need to make certain we kind of set that rule up before we enter in the next year. Maybe that would be the area for clarification, is how to amend motions and what happens to the previous motion.
Yep.
Great idea. Thank you. Any other comment?
I'm just looking at the number 24 on page 5. And although I think this is speaking to what you just mentioned, Charlie,
Yep.
regarding the voting process. Is there flexibility to allow a sheet to be sent around and votes to be marked in that way? Is that a possibility in process? Because it is, speaking
There is,
to,
yeah, there is not.
it must be oral.
Yep. The only, that is considered a secret ballot of some kind, and the only opportunities for a quote-unquote secret ballot are town meeting, school district, school district votes and elections. Any meeting held in a public forum like this, the votes have to be public, taken in public.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. I get my pages, bear with me for just a second. Remote and, meeting minutes format and processing. I am on page 5, item number 21, modify meeting minutes and the format. They have been laborious and very time-consuming. And there are certain guidelines statutorily that are required in minutes. And they are particular to our votes. Those must be absolutely accurate. Both the motions, the content of the motion, the person who made it, the person who seconded it, and the ultimate vote by individual and in total. Those absolutely have to be accurate. And it's not to say everything else can be inaccurate, it's simply to say those are essential components of minutes that we must follow. My bias is the following, that we have the ability to get a download of the recording that is processed through a software application called Highnote. And the administrative assistant to Ashley has that at their disposal and provides that document back to me, and it is a condensed form. It doesn't go through all of the mention of the individual made a comment about this, another individual made a comment about that. It really speaks to the subject, decision, and vote, or tenor of a particular subject. I believe if we adopt that, it would condense the administrative work associated with minutes and would get them back in a timely manner. And Ashley earlier commented, those minutes need to be posted. We are required that they are posted within 5 business days of the actual meeting. 5 business days, correct? Or is it 5 days?
5 business days, they have to be available to the public. Ideally, we do try to get them posted within 5 days. But if they're not posted, we just have to have them available in the event we get a request for them. We work real hard to try to get them posted within 5 days. And I think what we do with the Board of Selectmen and other commission boards is use the AI tool to transcribe the YouTube link. We go in and edit. They don't often get last names spelled correctly or first names spelled correctly. We edit those and then typically send it to the chair for them to go through. And then at the next meeting, the full board commission either says, my name is spelled wrong or whatever, but there isn't a back and forth on email with the committee members. I know that I talked about this a bit last season. We have to be very, very careful on email. Group emails back and forth are considered a meeting and are certainly subject to the right to know laws, but it also has a potential for us to get into some pretty big trouble if there is a good number of emails, group emails flying back and forth, which is why some of you on other committees will see that I BCC folks when I am emailing things out. But any sort of group email back and forth conversations, questions, that is considered a meeting. And if it's not in the public, we're in trouble.
Is it considered a conversation if the minutes are sent out BCC'd and input for corrections is asked for?
No, but again,
Because that makes it more, the intention is,
Yeah.
as you know, is that we don't spend a laborious amount of time in a meeting going through the minutes and doing all the correction. And in fact, it serves the purpose of they're as accurate as we can get them. And then if somebody sees something at the last minute, we change it in the meeting versus we're going through the whole nut.
Sure. No, that is not considered a meeting, but what I don't want is multiple versions of drafts continuing to go out, between meetings. I'm not sure that's a good use of anyone's time. So that is not considered a meeting, but I would just caution that
Okay,
it feels like a
so
lot.
based on what I'm saying is it's a summary of the meeting. It's not point by point by point by point, which is lengthy and tedious and not necessary, as long as the information that is reflected properly represents the subject and discussion and ultimately any vote taken. And if everybody's okay with that, that's how we'll proceed as we go forward. I mean, I've got the job of doing that, and I've had able assistance from Karen and Cynthia and others as we go forward, and we'll try to do it the way, we will do it the way we just discussed. Okay. The item 18, page 5, which is review and continue to improve department data. There are some gaps in the data. We did a set of data questionnaires, John, to department heads off a 20-question set to glean information about the particular area department and utilize that for all committee members as a way of familiarizing them with the operations within the town that do ultimately then have budgetary implications or impact. And those were then distributed to all committee members and to be posted on our website so they're available, and the intention being that all members have all that data, and so we're all up to speed on the same information about how departments are formed, how they function, how they budget, and a whole other set of questions. So there are a couple that need to be I think, edited and improved upon, and I would like to just take that on off meeting and try to figure out how we go through what those might be and who might work on them. But John and I have met, so he's a new member of the committee, and I've made him aware of these, but I'm yet to share them all. But the idea is that a new member of a committee can come in and really read those and become very knowledgeable very quickly without having to go to each department head and have a meeting and learn about what they do, how they do it, what their mission is, all of the particulars about their department, and thereby respecting their time and making our time more efficiently used. And I think that's a good approach for us to follow as we go forward. So if there's any other discussion on that, I welcome it now. If not, I'll move on to the next item. That next item is the big stuff. The really big things that came back are, the first of those is to consider on page 4, item 12, formalizing our governance process. And that section talks about having a formal document that would guide how this committee is structured, what its role responsibilities are, and other statutory requirements that we have as a committee. And it be a document that serves both this committee today, but all future committees. Karen Epstein and I talked about this as a suggestion, and Karen took it on to put a draft together of what that might look like, an outline of what that might look like. And I'd like you, Karen, to present that now, the copy of it, and then have discussion by the committee to the merits of that and how, if it's agreeable, we might move forward with it.
Okay, so I will pass this down, please, and,
We'll need a microphone right.
yeah, and
there
as
you
I
go.
just said to John, don't start reading till I say go,
Okay,
okay?
we'll do that. No go.
Top secret.
There is no go.
I guess the conversation we've had so far.
Into the microphone.
Oh, here I go.
Get it closer to you, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The conversation we've had this evening, I think, really demonstrates the need for this document. And as it was kind of flushed out, it's been a process that's kind of taken a number of weeks. How it came about was looking at feedback and hearing feedback from previous budget committees over the past years, and also just doing a survey of, on what some other towns have done in terms of documenting their budget committee process. Some call it bylaws, some call it procedures, some call it process. So that is what I used as kind of a launch. And so the cover page, if we could all take a moment to read that, just describes the purpose and what we could see as the value of the document. I can't say enough that this is a work in progress. So this is what to start is to say why we'd like to do this as a committee. So if we could all take a moment to read it, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. And if we flip the page when everyone's had a chance to read, just flip the page, please, so we know we can move on. So if we're all good to go, is there anyone that's not? Let me know. All right. So what you have on page 1 and 2 is really the draft framework. And as I started working on this, it really got interesting to see how this all came about. You know, what is the history of the committee? Goes back to 1935 and the evolution of it through the years. So just a quick, background history as we move down. We talk about the role, the governing statutes, and I think what we heard in the discussion tonight based on the feedback document, we do need some clarification there and could benefit from that. And next we go into how the committee is structured, the officers and their roles, expectations as has been discussed tonight as well, how we organize the meetings, the schedule, agendas. The next page we talk about the rules that govern the meeting. We've also, a few of these things have come up tonight as well. What are the motions, amendments to motions, the voting process? Going further, it takes us down to training and education. What do we do to inform ourselves as whether we are as a prospective member or a current member or a member of the public? And also at the end have an appendix of supporting materials so that we have source documents there if people wanted to kind of read for themselves or that would support this, this as it is really evolving into almost an instruction type of a manual of some sort that could sit as a resource and, as Charlie has said, could guide us not just today, but into the future as well. So that is the proposal. This is the framework, and I thank Charlie for his excellent input in really finessing it and providing the right words to deliver what it is we're trying to bring forward. And I think the feedback we've heard tonight, if something like this were to develop, and we would create it, what our next step is, I don't know, but it would address a lot of, I think, the feedback we've gotten in terms of how we can operate as a committee. And so I look forward to your comments and seeing if we'd like to take a next step to get something like this developed and adopted by the committee once completed.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback quickly and then open it to the committee. I supported this idea of Karen's and did so from the standpoint of being a chair. While I learned by participation, I didn't really have a good understanding and experience in many of the areas that this document is referring to. So Kim and I had some conversation about being a new member, and it's really challenging. I think, Meg, you've experienced it. We all experienced it at one point in time, and it was not necessarily a good thing. I think primarily because there's a lot to understand and to be capable in, as well as cognizant of. So I think this has a lot of value potentially. My one caution of it is it's a lot. And I'm sort of trying myself to work to make sure things are as simple as possible, condensed and not redundant necessarily to other resources or documents. So that's my thought on this.
Comment.
Yeah, please.
Just thanks, Karen, for putting this together. I think this is a good framework, maybe an instruction manual or however you want to refer to it. I think for a new person, this would have been great to have prior to, or, John, if you were joining today, if you had this last month and could look it over and have questions, or even if it was today, I think it's great. And I'm not saying that this is the intention of it. It's a question and a concern is around some of the wording around expectations of communication or attendance, of absentees. Things happen, and I don't know the legalities of can you fire a budget committee member if they don't attend X amount of meetings? I don't know the rules around that. I just think that that's where I start to cross a line of we're volunteers, and I think putting together that instruction manual for new members or even existing in one place would be awesome. I would probably have opinions on if we're saying, here are the requirements as a budget committee member for attendance and those types of things. And again, not saying that that's the case, I'm just saying that that's where I would probably have some discussion. And I see John's probably going, wait, I didn't think vice chairs had much responsibility.
Yeah, good point. Other comments, thoughts? Lou?
I think having an SOP or a manual of procedure it's a very good idea. And again, provided that we don't end up going, RSA 32.5, that it's basically, how would you say, that's sacred, because that's what we have to run by. However, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you look, there are other towns that have standard operating procedures. I know Litchfield has them, and so does Samberton.
Yes, Lou, that's a great point, and I think one thing we could keep in mind if we decided something we wanted to move forward on, I have samples of all those documents, and we could pull over what some other towns have done, evaluate it, review it, see if it's a fit for here, if it's something we want to have addressed and included. So this may seem like a lot, but as it lays out in at least the other examples I've looked at, it's not as much as it appears. It has a flow to it. I mean, I think what would have been helpful for me this year that just passed is, there was one town that I thought had a really helpful thing on what a motion look like? An amendment to a motion, et cetera, et cetera. That would have been really helpful to me, because sometimes I feel like, you're in the moment, you're trying to do your best, and you have to do it correctly. And to have something that you could have referred to ahead of time to prepare yourself would have been a really helpful thing. And looking at the feedback document, there seems to be some themes that have recurred, not just this year, but prior years as well, and this seems like a good opportunity to really address them. And this is the committee's document for the committee to adopt. So, of course, there'll be back and forth, but I think it's, to Lou's point, we can look at what else has been done and see what we can draw in and go from there as well.
The one thing that I'll add is that before this goes into motion or into play here, we will need town council to opine
certainly,
on it.
yeah.
So they'll also review it before.
Of course,
Yeah.
one of the things that I hope comes across clearly is the emphasis of a compliance with Chapter 32, with 91A, and of course, considerations for what is important to the town of New London. For example, the Roberts Rules, the following of that. But wouldn't it be nice if you're a new committee member or an existing one, and you do have a question about a vote, and you want to know how to address reconsideration, that it'd be something there that you could refer to as a resource. I also think, once complete and passing the muster, that it could serve as something that the town could use, such as the voters would be able to look at, how do we run this? How does the committee run? And I think, so it's not just for us, but it's also for the broader public as well.
I just want to say thank you, Karen, for doing what looks like an awful lot of work. And it's something I think could be very beneficial. And honestly, to have put the time and energy into this, I just want to say I'm very grateful. I'd be happy to help fill in the blanks on this. I don't know what the process would be in terms of working on this document, but I just wanted to express my appreciation, and then curious what you both think of as next steps if we are going to try and move ahead on this.
Yes, I thank you, Cynthia. I applaud Karen, you for doing this work as well. Before we go there, I'd like very much to hear from Kim as a new member, how you regard something like this, and certainly Meg, you as well.
Okay. Way to put me on the spot, thanks. So I would absolutely applaud the opportunity to have an education system set up for new members, something concrete rather than, we did get the great big binder, but something a little more personalized to understand what it is that we are looking at and discussing in these meetings. I do feel a little hesitant on some of the attendance requirements if there are not opportunities to attend virtually, because if you want people from different generations, I know I was not available a lot of this past winter because my daughter had ACL surgery in January, and I legitimately could not leave her, so for a month. So, there are things that come up if you want different input that we need to make accommodations for, is my thought. All right.
Yeah,
Those are my thoughts.
I agree completely. The only thing I would add is that I think this is fantastic from an orientation manual. I think most of us have had the experience where it feels like the first entire year on the committee feels like just learning and hard to find a way to contribute at least proactively. And I think it would be at least a better way to kind of get up to speed that first year, so it doesn't feel like it really is at the end of the year, we're like, all right, I finally get like what we're all working towards. So I would completely be in favor, and maybe my only suggestion would be if we could make it like an online resource versus another large packet.
Yes, a great point. yes,
agree.
That this would be something that would live online, and again, making it very accessible to the public as well.
John, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I like the idea as well as a general direction. I kind of see three different sections in this, one of which I would like to propose maybe even beefing up or maybe wording a little bit differently. There's an operational section, which is really the meetings and even the training and the rules. You know, so that's how we function.
Yeah.
You can call it operations, you can call it function, whatever. Then there is this membership section, you know, which is expectations of members, officers, that sort of thing, organization. You know what, committee structure. I like that as a title, and sort of like, I think it's a little less, it's a little more general and may lead people into what you're trying to get at a little more there than maybe expectations of members. And you have this down. The part that I think I would probably flush out, which would answer potentially a lot of the questions and statements that were made in the document, is under background and history, I would not only include background and history of the New London Budget Committee, I would put the background and history of why the state has budget committees in general. I would put the original goal of the state in forming budget committees so we understand it. I know that some of that is available, but like
Yeah, well,
shorten
there
it
are
up.
also, not every town has a budget committee, and some have a budget advisory committee as opposed to what we have here, which is a budget committee. So there are
Yeah.
different forms of what
And
that
then
looks like.
under role, I think I would put, you know, how this committee is supposed to interact with staff, the selectmen, us. What's the difference? What's the difference between them? What is their role? What is our role? And so it's not just our role, it's the role of other elected officials. And, you know, where are the boundaries? And I think that would be helpful and answer a fair number of questions that are contained in our sheet.
Sorry, excuse me. The Municipal Budget Act was passed in 1935, and New London soon after adopted it. And so I actually spent some time talking to Jim Perkins, and he came up with some research as well in terms of the evolution of the committee and its functioning. So it's been a really interesting process.
Thank you, that's great. Please, Kim, go ahead.
And I would love to hear that history. Like, if you have, like, I would love to hear the history of the Budget Committee and how it has evolved and what it has done. So, yeah, that I feel like could be part of our orientation education.
Yeah,
I would love that.
it's really, I think, important when you feel part of a continuum, something that wasn't just born like 5 years ago, but it's been throughout the years. So I spent some time in the New Hampshire room at the library going through some old town reports, and you see pictures of the Budget Committee at Sid Crook when they're sitting across a table, you know, I think, wouldn't that be nice, you know, you're just sitting right across the table going through things and the write-ups. So it was really an interesting experience and very validating to feel like you're part of something that has a history and then also going forward as well.
So how to proceed from here, I think this requires a sufficient amount of work to populate the sections, make sure they're properly ordered as well as labeled, and that's probably a lot of work. So Cynthia might help you, and if there were another committee member that might be willing to do some of that work with Karen and Cynthia, I think that would also be welcomed. And if that's somebody now, that would be great. If not, maybe,
Do we have to, for example, have a vote to assign a subcommittee to develop SOPs?
As
I
you-
don't know that we do need to do that. I think this, if the committee is, sponsoring a work group, and that work group doesn't represent a quorum, then, like much of this was singular work. You guys are laughing at something. Oh, okay. This was largely singular work on the part of Karen. That didn't require us to do that, but I don't know if I missed.
Yeah, I would say
some
if 2 or
statutory-
3 people want to work on it, and then come back to the group, but any discussions have to be done in public about the document. So if you guys want to create additional drafts and then come back to a public meeting, but what can't happen is drafting, sharing amongst emails or sharing it individually, that all of that has to be done in public.
Okay.
What's the minimum before it becomes a public meeting? 2 or
No, it's a quorum. So the one question is whether Rich is considered part of that quorum or not. So it's either 5 or 6.
so if it's if it's a group of less than 4, they can work on it and then come back and,
Sure. And then come back and have a discussion with the group for the group to discuss publicly. What were you going to say, Chris? You're going to say something?
He was asked, I believe Richard is part of, as counts for.
Yeah, I can't remember where we landed on that, so I've got to take away to.
All right, so you'll
Find that out.
clarify that, but I think that answers what you're
Yeah.
asking. So if there is another person that wants to avail their time and expertise to this process, Karen, do you mind heading it and working with Cynthia? And I certainly
delighted.
don't mind helping if I can.
Yeah,
Give
and
help.
if people don't, can't think of it tonight, and you go home and you say, boy, I'd really love to help out on that, feel free to reach out.
What's
But-
your schedule? When are you going to be working on it?
Well, that would be the next step that I need to really think about. I would like to get started on it next week. But you can also jump in, John, because you've already
be
made some
good,
nice
John.
contributions. I mean,
How about,
and I would.
September I may be in. But next
I mean,
week,
well, let me ask the committee here, ask the chair, what would be a reasonable timetable, do you think, for us to?
I have absolutely no idea how to answer that. I think that you had a thought?
I was just going to say before, again, depending on the intention, and I don't think there's any, I think it's an informative document. I think at any time, it might not help John this year, but next year if we have folks. However, if it's meant to be like, this is how we are going to operate this year, well, then I would say it has to be done before the first meeting where we're actually talking to department heads. So again, it's the intention of the document for this year, or is it for following years?
I have an idea. What if John worked with you? Hi. No, John Ziegler, to be clear.
It's a good answer, John. It's a good answer.
It's the problem with having too many Johns.
I mean, if I was going to make some suggestions on it, one is we might look at, along the lines of what you point out, is what are the things we need to know sooner rather than later? And try to get
interesting.
those
Yes.
segments done as part of it, so that we can, we come up to our first vote, we know what we're doing about voting, and as fascinating as history is, and I love to read the history, I don't need to know the history to figure
Today.
out the voting.
Get it.
And the other thought I had on this is, at some point when it's put together, is to be able to pull out various segments to hand to people who might consider putting their name in to be elected to the committee. They certainly don't need to know how we do our voting, but they may want to know, how many floggings we're going to get if we miss a meeting, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What are the sort of the basic things, the real expectations of what they are for joining,
Perfect.
rather than
That's
trying to get
wonderful.
through the
I
whole thing.
appreciate you starting the work on it, and they will enjoy your company. So,
All right, if we
This is
have
the
a-
group,
we
and you have
a-
other resources to draw upon
And
as
we
you
also have
feel
the
you need
chair.
them. Yeah, you've got me. Okay, thank you very much. Excellent work, excellent discussion. The next item I'd like us to talk about is page 1, item 1 under question 2. This one is important. They're all important, but I think this one has a particular appeal to me. But the suggestion is to adopt an application process for funding requests from nonprofits, nonprofit organizations, and committees. And the thought is to have a standard application of information you would provide in advance, and it would be uniform to all parties asking for money. And it would allow for complete information for all asking entities, and it would allow the Budget Committee, I think it would allow the Board of Selectmen also similar information, and I think it would create for those parties asking for money, put a little heft to it, because I think as I've experienced looking at these requests for monies, varying type of information is provided. And I think if we standardize it and we put some rigor to it, there's some value there for the organization that's asking and for the organization, ultimately the town, that is providing it. I did a little work on this myself. I looked at other towns, and there are other, Hanover has an application process, and it's pretty robust. And I think it would be relatively easy to pull it together, customize it to what we think our needs are, and then be able to distribute it so that it was timely to our budget process. As you know, these organizations come forward August, September, thereabouts, with to the Board of Selectmen, when department head budgets have typically also been presented. And we could likely have an application form put together really quickly and easily, and then pass it on to you, Ashley, and the Select Board for their
Yep.
Board of Selectmen.
And I think if my memory serves me correctly, we had the organizations and department heads submit their budgets and requests by the 3rd week of September, 4th week of September. So we'd want that application before then. We'd also want to give them some time because this
Right.
will be a new process.
Right.
And then I think even before that, I know that there are other towns that utilize things like this, but we still want town council to
Look at it.
review.
Yep. Yep.
Before that.
I was going to ask, is that something that obviously the selectmen, it could just be a budget committee request, but obviously it would be helpful if the selectmen also follow that process. But to the point of council, it doesn't preclude someone coming in at the last minute to ask for money. I've seen that happen many times. In fact, it happened last year, right? So, as long as we would prefer to have those applications, but it doesn't preclude you from asking for money.
Yeah, and I think we would want the same process for both, because Charlie had mentioned this at the beginning. What Charlie and Janet Kidder and I have chatted a little bit about is having one, what the selectmen and what the town calls a jamboree day, where all organizations and department heads come and present their requests, but it be a joint meeting so that we don't have folks coming back multiple times to make the same request. So I think that's something that, maybe we'll talk about that today.
We will.
But the hope is that we can combine that to one meeting.
So, as the leader of a nonprofit, I would suggest some word changes. So as I came in, I was really hot on this idea. I like the idea, so I want to start by saying that. I would encourage us to consider language other than the word application for funding, if that's going to make it feel like anyone can apply for application for funding. I like the term that I just heard Ashley use, which was request. Request for inclusion in the town budget is a much higher bar than an application for funding. And so I would just consider the wording that we're using as we're doing that, so that suggests that it is not open to
Anybody, anywhere.
everyone,
anytime.
anywhere, for anything. Yes.
Right. Good, excellent. John?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the Mascoma Bank it gives money to nonprofits and town entities and all that, and we constantly get things. And one of the things it says in their application, and I like request better than application, I agree with you, is it makes it very clear you have to meet these particular items in order to be even considered. You've got to be a 501c3, or you've got to be a public entity, town, or something like that, and I can't remember what the rest of them are, but you could probably get a copy of it.
I can get a copy of it.
And then you whoever, when they fill this out, they've got to explain, how they meet these. And it doesn't take a whole lot, we're a 501c3, okay, fine. So you can skip all the rest of them. And then there may be some comment in there also about the type of things that we typically fund, which is helpful from the standpoint to say, well, we don't meet that, and bad from the standpoint that somebody says, well, why are you discriminating against X? And we're not, we just didn't think about it when we were putting down our list, so.
Yeah, my attempt here is to make this clear that it's not a grant application.
Yes. Yes.
Which interestingly, there's part of me that thinks the more rules and stipulations you put in that direction, the more it feels like, oh, if I have this, and this, then I can apply.
Yeah.
And so I would just encourage us to be, there's a lot to think about there, that's all. Very much in favor of the idea.
And I do think that the Board of Selectmen will have an opinion on that, on what that looks like in terms of organizations. Because I think in general, their sentiment has been, it needs to have a broad impact on our community. King Solomon Lodge is a good one. That's a more recent one where we are funding them, we're giving them money, but it's because if we didn't do that, they would have lost their parking lot, and then the parking issue down in Elkins would have been an absolute nightmare with boat trailers. So that's, it's one example, but that's what the Board of Selectmen often think about, is just how is this going to benefit the greater community and the town,
Yeah.
from a town operational standpoint.
Good. Sentiment is, let's chase this one. Anybody want to lead it?
What?
Alligator arms. Somebody's got to do this. Start it, get it going. Anybody want to volunteer? Going once, going twice? Sold. I'll volunteer to lead this one. And I will draw upon committee members as I need you. And Ashley, I can work, I think, with you also to get some of that input. And possibly Rich isn't here, but maybe Rich might be the person I could collaborate with as well. So, God, I love that volunteer. He's such a good one. Pleasure. Let's now go to, if you don't mind, page 4, item 13. And this is our calendar of meetings with expectations. This is about how do we get a calendar set? What are we actually going to cover versus what might be nice to cover? And how do we do it as efficiently as we can, utilizing the committee's time and department head times as effectively as we can? Related to that is item 2, page 2, under number 3, paragraph B. Hold a day-long joint budget session with the Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee, parenthetically, required attendance unless something would cause you not to be able to be there, obviously.
Flood or fire?
Yeah. So I've had conversation with Ashley and Janet Kidder together about this. And I think there's some pros and there's some cons. I will, the idea of a jamboree, I don't like particularly because it denotes something different in my mind than what's actually occurring. Additionally, I am biased that I think it's a hefty lift to cover the amount of data and presentations and discussions with the department heads, plus nonprofits, plus committees in one day, in one meeting. I just, from my experience, I find that to be a hydrant of water coming out that's just really difficult. However, I see value in us participating in that kind of a meeting because, as we've experienced, it's very redundant when that meeting takes place and then subsequently we meet with every individual department head and go through all the line items on their budget and yabba yabba yah. It is redundant. So if we were able to adopt this idea of having a joint meeting, the key is a couple of keys in my view. One, that it's reasonable in terms of agenda, amount of data in one meeting or possibly two, and I'd lean to 2 meetings personally. And secondly, that all voices are heard. I think it's really quite challenging that we as a committee of 10, which includes a member of the Board of Selectmen, then you have 2 other Board of Selectmen, and you've got a lot of other people in a meeting, and I wouldn't want to engage in something where any member of this committee felt, I didn't have my opportunity to talk, and I'm feeling pressured because everybody wants to move on to the next thing. And I really have something I want to say or ask. So I think there's a significant challenge around the number of voices and how do you effectively engage in conversation that's meaningful and obviously valuable. So I like the idea. I like trying it. And what Ashley, Janet, and I talked about was, okay, well, what after that meeting? What does that meeting ultimately generate that would be relative to and relevant to the Budget Committee's further work? I'm making up an example. Let's say Sam's no longer here. We can talk about the Department of Public Works, although we're not talking about it. But using that as an example, if a budget item came up that was a big item, and that meeting didn't allow for the type of further dialogue and discussion and maybe information sharing, that might fall into a subsequent meeting agenda for the Budget Committee. Might also for the Select Board, but I'm just talking as for this committee. Or if there's a big item that is a town item that is talked about frequently and has multiple impacts on budget. I could make one up, but I won't do that. I think then we have a schedule of meetings where there may be already purpose and topic identified, but it might take shape that it comes from that joint meeting as well. The other thing I've thought about and please opine on this, is when we look at the operating budget, I've concluded there are 4 big areas. Department of Public Works, police, dispatch, and fire. It's not that the others aren't important, it's just they're not complicated, they're easy to look at, easy to understand, and they're small in scope. And I think that may help guide us as a committee also of what do we tackle in terms of agenda topic as we go forward in the remainder of our budget development and review process. Those are my thoughts on it, and I entertain, let's open it up and talk about it. What do you think of the idea? What do you think of the concept? What do you think about trying it? And you want to do it a marathon meeting? You want to break it up? What's the pleasure? What's the thought process? Input. Please, react.
I will opine as well, so this is just off the top of my head. I would definitely prefer 2 meetings versus an all-day. Again, everybody, a lot of people on the committee have jobs during the week and maybe not want to take a day off for that. because they have other time off or they don't have much time off. So I think having 2 meetings and perhaps, again, I don't know if it's even possible, something that's after working hours, even though that's harder for department heads, I understand that. I think I could find a 4-hour block, 2 days to do that. It'd be reasonable versus an entire day. I know, this is me talking. So I like the idea of breaking it up too, because an 8-hour session is going to be non-productive after a few hours, right? Just numbers after numbers. I think I am all for efficiency. Unfortunately, we live in a democracy with government, so it's inefficiency rules. I think anyways we can make the meetings as efficient as possible. I know we've tried a number of things over the 13 years that I've been here. Inevitably, it comes down to the budget changes from when it's presented. So unless that first meeting is closer to the voting date, which even in 3 or 4 months, things change, they always change. Whether revenue changes or what I'm spending changes will always bring up questions, and plans change, so those will bring up questions. In 13 years, I think we've tried a few different ways to make the meetings more efficient, but inevitably questions will come up about a line item or something with a department that is bigger than, that takes precedent for the year. Believe me, I would love to say we can have less meetings. I think that would benefit us better and probably get better attendance. It's just the time period between when we have the department heads present their budget and then we talk about rec in November. Could be a 3-month time period where things have changed with weather or what Putnam's planning, or I'm just using that as an example. And I guarantee you somebody on this committee is going to have questions about something that was talked about at that meeting. It's just inevitable that there's going to be some redundancy, but if we can reduce the number of meetings, I am all for that.
A potential hybrid suggestion, and we're just playing with ideas here.
Yes.
So, Public Works, Fire, Police, Dispatch. Those 4 are large enough to require their own meeting, so that's 4 meetings right there, or
Yep.
3 meetings.
Yep.
So if we kept those 3 meetings and pulled them out of the Jamboree for us, hold on. We did 1 day where we considered all of the nonprofit actions and a variety of other smaller actions that are bundled. Maybe we do the library, maybe we do, we bundle up a group. We put that into a 4-hour block and we actually try and vote on it.
Vote on it.
I don't know. That might change the schedule.
No, I'm saying vote on it. Are you talking about?
We try to put the budget together for those 4 when they present to us.
To clarify, do you mean in September or August, or do you mean at the end of the year?
Well, I'm tossing the calendar to the wind. That's what I'm playing with ideas here. So why not, if we really want to segment this out, we keep the big ones. So let's pull those aside. I think we can all kind of understand and get our head around why you want to talk to fire by themselves. If we segmented everybody else into 2 days and moved the meetings later, why couldn't we bundle it and have 2 super meetings and get a lot done? Maybe during the day.
Well, I certainly agree with breaking them up. From my own standpoint, it'd be a lot easier for me to prepare for a meeting if I'm going in to just talk about one large group, like use fire as an example, as opposed to trying to understand everything from top to bottom and spend 12 hours around a table to swallow it. Yeah, so I think to me, what you say makes a lot of sense. I certainly can't talk on experience.
So then, just talking this through, we would still have the same full-day jamboree with the Board of Selectmen, which is 8 or 9 hours, where we have the organizations and the department heads come through. The Board of Selectmen then vote on the budget that they pass on to the Budget Committee for you guys, and then you all would break it up into 2 different days and then maybe hold those other departments, those larger departments out for other meetings. Okay, okay.
Yeah, mine was to not have the one-day jamboree, was to actually have
Well, the Board of Selectmen would do that regardless. So regardless, it's still a time, so for you guys, it wouldn't be a time commitment, but for department heads and organizations, we would still go through that process, a day-long session.
the selectmen want to do that no matter what.
Yeah, I like the idea very much.
Do we remember how many meetings we had last year?
16,
Yeah, somewhere around 15.
yeah.
At a budget presentation? No, I don't mean like a meeting like right
Oh,
now.
I don't-
just mean like a,
Oh, no, I don't know the breakout of presentations.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I also think, as I earlier stated, I think there are some budgets that are pretty straightforward. We really don't even need to have a discussion about them, frankly. Patriotic purposes, I mean, planning and zoning, I mean, they're very straightforward budgets. But if there's some big item, we can ask the question, but we don't get mired into separate presentations and all this other that we consume a lot of time on.
Yeah,
Low value, minimal budgetary impact.
And I like the idea of that. I want to make sure, though, that when we get to the end of the budget season, when you all are voting on the overall budget, that you don't then come back and say, well, we didn't hear about patriotic, now I have questions. So that is,
and that's a bad example, but,
Yeah.
sorry, but that will happen, right? And I'm giving context of the last 13 years, that a change in one budget will then cause a committee member to say, well, if we're adding money here, maybe we should reduce money here. So the voting piece, I don't care if we have 2 meetings where we talk about all the departments, but the voting piece, I think, is important, that we need a commitment that every member is going to be here. So if we're spreading voting out, I think we keep the voting to the end like we've done it, because that allows last-minute changes, that allows amendments. A change makes a change, makes a change, it goes downhill. But if we could combine 3 meetings into one and make it be 3 hours versus 6 hours, let's do that.
That's where you're going. Okay. Mindful of our time, I think the idea in concept is good, and we should pursue this. We need to flesh that out in terms of what does that actually look like in terms of populating 2 days. And that sounds pretty straightforward. I mean, the way you articulated it, John, is, to me, spot on. I think it's fairly easy to do that.
I do think we'd also get more public
Participation,
if we had 2 or 3 meetings versus 8 or 9.
I agree with
Because
that
we just
totally.
typically see the same 2 or 3
Faces.
people at a meeting from the public. If we had less meetings, we might get more participation.
Additionally, sort of piggybacking on the idea, I wonder about tightening up the budget discussion. For example, what does a department head actually control? That's what I want to hear from the department head. They do not control health benefits. That's the health benefits are the health benefits that's handled in aggregate. Doesn't mean it's not a budget item we shouldn't ask about, but in terms of a budget presentation and discussion, it's out of their control. What else is out of their control? Retirement is another one, right? And why spend any time in a department head discussion on those items that are reflected in their operating budget based on the allocation and personnel that are, attached to the benefits? So if we thought about more holistically, what's the bucket of health, welfare, health expense, benefit expense,
You're talking about salaries and benefits.
aggregate?
Or, so I mean, one option would be, and I don't know if I could understand.
I'm not talking about salary, because what I am talking about is,
Just benefits.
I'm talking about health benefits, right? Retirement
Workman's comp,
benefits,
retirement.
workers' comp, yeah, those items that individual, they don't have any control over that. It is what it is. So in a discussion, for example, on fire, I'm not going to talk about health benefits. I don't want to know about that because they don't impact it. They don't control it. They impact it, but they don't control it.
Yeah, we can.
But you're interested in COLA and steps and things like that?
Yeah.
because That's 65% of the
62,
budget is
62%,
salaries
somewhere in
and
there.
benefits,
50, yeah.
right? Something like that?
Yeah.
So,
So that's sort of an add-on thought to how we tighten the discussion with the department heads, and if we're talking about the four large ones, those items that they don't control are not in the purview of our discussion, at least in that particular meeting. We might have a broad discussion with Lynn and Ashley about health benefits and how we're thinking about them, what's the trend, where's it going, what are the challenges, blah, 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 blah. But I think if we kept that out of the framework of that particular agenda for that particular department, it would tighten up that meeting and allow us to do good work on
I mean,
2 or 3 departments in one meeting.
last year, didn't we have the department heads just talk about changes to the budget? They had a couple sheets where, like, based on the year prior, this is a change. So they had a little couple sentences or a paragraph, depending on how big it was. And that's all they really presented to us, was everything else is the same. Gravel might cost another $1 or whatever. So that's up this year, sorry. But other than that, it was just, here's the changes of a 30 line item budget. I'm only going to talk about 4 or 5. But again, we've done that, and inevitably, I hate to be the
Debbie Downer.
Debbie Downer, yes, I was like Polly Prissy Pants, but Debbie Downer, it's going to happen where people are going to have questions, and let's try and be efficient, and I'd look to the chair and vice chair, to say, like, here's the guardrails. It doesn't stop people from asking questions, but you have purview as a chair or vice chair to say, enough, let's move on.
Okay. Are we good to move on? So I think what we might do, I'll take it on, and Chris, maybe you could help me with this one, and sort of populate day 1 and populated day 2, maybe 3, if it requires it, of the budgets we'd review and a little bit about content of that review. But to your point, the Jamboree, the Board of Selectmen do, that will go on as always. That's their process. Any member of this committee can attend and is encouraged to do so because it's really a helpful education. It's a hell of a long day, but that's the way they've chosen to do it. And then maybe we talk offline a little bit about the big bucket items that no department heads control, but are big bucket items, and how we might have dialogue and discussion around that. And that would be particular to another meeting maybe that we think about in our calendar if we feel that's necessary.
Yeah,
make
and
sense?
I know I'm hearing bits and pieces about COLA and salary and things of that nature. Those conversations would need to be with the Board of Selectmen. And that, I am not sure on what that looks like.
See, I don't think, Ashley, my experience is, we're not talking about the amount we pay.
Okay.
We want to know what the COLA is,
Sure.
and how it's determined. Ultimately, that's a Board of Selectmen decision.
Yes.
In theory, a Budget Committee could say, well, we're recommending a COLA of different than the amount that the Board of Selectmen have, which could or might have a budgetary impact. But that's a different, we're not talking about how much a department head is making and how much of the hourly rates and what's the average
Yeah.
hourly rate, blah, 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 blah. That level of detail is not in our.
And I can check to see ultimately who on the COLA piece, who is the ultimate decider on
Yeah,
that, if it is the
it
Board of
would be helpful
Selectmen
for us
or if
to
the
know
Budget Committee.
what's
Happy to
in
follow
our-
up on that.
What's in our lane of
Yeah.
authority, if you will.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it COLA defined somewhere?
That's an interesting question.
Is it defined? Some towns don't offer it at all. Usually we go by the New England Consumer Price Index. That's the towns that do offer COLA typically go by that. So we wait for the December report to come out and take the average of the year of what the CPI is and go off of that.
And that's why I was gonna say it's later in the year, like, 'cause that.
It is.
I think that was like mid-December, right?
Yep, and those are all discussed at Board of Selectmen meetings.
If I recall correctly, I think the Board of Selectmen was going to evaluate that over this season, from last year into this current budget.
Yep, so where we left it was the department heads and myself are in our monthly department heads meeting, our meeting to discuss sort of all of those things and what that process would look like. There is a compensation plan with a standard merit increase process. It is around the COLA and the Board of Selectmen's desire to have some sort of standard process there. So what we said is that we would meet and come up with a recommendation on COLA and some other items as well, and then present it back to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
And just as a side note, the town meeting calendar that dictates sort of all of those dates, those statutory dates that we have to meet leading up to town meeting, will not be published until mid to end August. So we'll wait for that and then put together our dates.
Okay, so I was gonna ask, when are department heads supposed to deliver their budgets to the select?
So typically, we've had that Jamboree Day the middle of October. We've got some conflicts. We already know that a few of our department heads will be out mid-October. And I think we were waiting to see if there was a desire to have a joint Jamboree Day so that there wasn't multiple opportunities for folks to come back. So we'll figure that out with the Board of Selectmen, but likely February-ish, we'll probably have, I'm speaking hopefully not out of turn, but I imagine that we will still have both department heads finalize their budgets that they would like and organizations to submit, sounds like an application by the end of September. Give Lynn a little bit of time to put things together, get budget packets out to folks, and then meet sometime later in October.
Okay. So I'll circle back. I'll put together an outline of what day one, day two might look like. Figure out how to share that to get feedback. But I need to coordinate that with you, and I'll take that on. We've got about 9 minutes left in our meeting time, which is insufficient to get at the calendar item that is really important, how to establish a calendar for our coming year. I think there are a lot of factors we've talked about that have influenced that. Let me hand this out. It's 2 pages to each member, and to Lynn and Ashley also. This is simply one, there is a calendar rudimentary identifying Wednesdays in the months from June all the way through February of next year. And there you go. And the second page is a set of topics that would potentially populate an agenda, a schedule, and ultimately drive some agendas. And some, obviously, of these are time sensitive. For example, the Capital Improvement Program Committee has to meet and do its work, and that has to be completed so that this committee has that information before it can really dig in and review it. And so that's time sensitive to Adam Ricker, who controls that, and that's just one example. But the 2 sheets list the months I just indicated, some of the activities that drive dates. You know, we have for example, the town report has to be printed, it has to have the budget in it, it has to have warrant articles, that has to be into printers at a certain time, and it's very time sensitive. And so we have to make sure our work dovetails into that and meets that timetable. the elections come into play because of November each year, and there may be implications that has. So I wanted to use this sort of as a working document, but we're not going to be able to accomplish that tonight. And however, what I propose we do is I want to step back from tonight's meeting, come up with a straw man, if you will, or an example of what our schedule might look like for budget review in this 2-day concept, 3-day maybe meetings, 3 meetings, to see what that might look like and when that might occur that is consistent with when the select board budget is actually given to us, which would be somewhere in and around October, November.
Yes, I
Yeah.
believe it's early November.
Early November.
That's what we aim
Yeah.
for.
However, there are some, and then secondly, I was going to suggest that we think about some of these other topics and whether they warrant, how much time they actually warrant or need to be complete and thorough in our work. I would give it as an example, the capital improvement program. One error I made this past year was I put that on the end of the agenda, and that has a lot of impact in terms of the budget, and it should be really on the front end of our meetings because capital is big and it has multi-year implications. It has all sorts of financing implications, as you well know. So based on when that work is estimated to be completed, would populate it into a particular week in a particular month. And I think that requires me to talk more with Adam before we can actually lay it in there. What I'd ask us to do offline is look at the topics page and see if you feel outside of the two budget meetings we're talking about, the idea that John put forward and was amended, that we could condense it to two or three meetings to get through the lion's share of the operating budget. If there are other topics that I have not identified here or that I have that may not be required, think about what those might look like if I've missed something here. And or I've put something in here that we really don't want to address. So one of the big topics coming forward, I think it's no secret, is water. We've got a water challenge and the precinct and what it can do, what it can't do, and how's the town approaching it, and what are the implications financially, near term and longer term. That's a big item. How do we want to think about it? How do we want to be informed about it? Does any input from having a participant from the precinct to talk about that, does that make any sense? Secondly, the school. The school, while it's not the budget for the town, it is the largest part of the tax rate. And there are some significant, we've all been reading or participating in meetings, significant capital that's coming forward that's going to be bonded debt, that's going to be 30-year term stuff, and it's a big number, huge numbers. And is that important for us to have a sufficient download on to understand it as we think about indebtedness for the town from a budget committee standpoint, because our capital improvement plan drives largely our bonded or financed debt. We haven't typically had water precinct here. We haven't had a school board rep. We've leaned on Rich to sort of be that person. And there's big stuff coming down the road. So is that something we should think about as a topic for a meeting for this committee or not? So if we could think about the topic list in conjunction with some of the activities that drive certain dates. And then if you would provide to me any add-ons or any, and do it just individually, not group email, just to me individually, Any add-ons or deletions or other thoughts? I would welcome that. And I would suggest what we do is, we need to schedule the next meeting to talk about our schedule, and get it nailed down to the greatest extent we can, and do that in a time frame that makes sense, where we're going to have more definitive answers. So I lay that out as a commentary and suggestion. And your reaction, if any?
That's my suggestion.
No, timeframe, it's 6 to 8 for our meeting time,
opposed to 6 to
as opposed to elongating the meetings.
Well, if we had less meetings, I guess the question, Kim, back to you would be, would you, if we went from 8 meetings to 4 meetings, would you spend an extra 30 minutes?
Sorry, before we get in there, this room is booked starting at 8:30 for a training with New London Police every Wednesday through the end of the
Okay,
year.
So we'll wrap up very quickly, but
Yep.
is there reason, do you have any other quick thoughts on
Yeah, no, I would
establishing
totally
a
do that in
schedule
30 minutes.
at a next meeting?
Does that mean that we should avoid Wednesdays for our meetings in general if we wanted to do a longer meeting?
Things get tricky because we have planning boards, zoning boards, and Board of Selectmen on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we would have to just look at the calendar, and those are standing meetings already on those nights.
Right, so that's, I guess we have to work within that part. So
Yeah,
you're
so
saying
Wednesday
Wednesdays
really is the
generally-
most ideal night, but I'm happy to look at the calendar. I think Mondays would probably be the only other option.
So
We've
that
got,
would be-
we've got rec commission, I mean, again, we've got 18 committees, commissions, and boards, but the standing meetings are planning, zoning, budget committee, and Board of Selectmen. So we can certainly try to figure it out, but Mondays would probably be the
Yeah, and rec is only once a month.
once a month. Yep.
Oh, right, okay. Just,
Right.
so the timing plus the available dates.
Yep.
Are we saying then that we would prefer a 2.5-hour meeting to make
No.
fewer meetings?
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, if
Well, are we though? Because I thought that was part of the discussion, not just you, but,
I think it's a matter of finding a grouping of meetings, and so I guess the ask is like, do we come back with a suggestion and a suggested time and react to that? Because I'm happy to come back to the committee with like, here's our proposal for 4 meetings instead of 8, and it's going to be 2.5 hours or 3 hours, and I'll buy pizza or something like that so that people can eat, something like that. But I don't know if, I guess I'm like, I can't tell you right now what my December 9th looks like reasonably and what meeting I want to put there. But I could group some meetings with you to say, this makes sense to have these 3 things, or like you said, capital reserves maybe go first, or, but we need,
CIP.
you need an order of operation. CIP, we should have that early, because that informs what the objectives of the town are.
Let me propose this. Chris is the most experienced in the room relative to longevity and knowledge. I'm the new guy, and, yeah, why don't you and I put our heads together and come up with a suggested schedule of topics and potential dates as just simply a place marker and draft to see if that makes sense and is reasonable. And then our next meeting could be to finalize that and get everybody in agreement, as well as maybe having what I think should be a next meeting at some point after the fiscal year ends, which is June 30. We get a discussion on that actual budget financial performance and what some of the issues and challenges have been that are going to influence future budgets, particularly in the next fiscal year. So maybe we can do that in one meeting where we do our calendar and that review of the fiscal year. Does that make sense? You okay? Sound okay? Great. I need a motion to adjourn. Thanking you very much for your time. Yes, I would like to pick a date. Thank you, John.
Can I make a motion to adjourn in the meantime?
No. Yeah, I second that too. I would suggest our next meeting to be in July, because the fiscal year would be ended. And I understand they're not audited results and all.
Yeah, and I want to just caution you there. We will be heads down preparing for the auditors who are on site the first week of August. So,
Okay. So, all right, why don't you and I talk offline
Yeah,
about
we
what
can
that
talk
looks like? But
offline.
we need as a committee to set a next meeting date regardless to talk schedule. If we can be accommodated with a financial
Yeah.
discussion, great. If not, then we'll talk about when.
I'm a little protective of her right now. She needs to be heads down, focusing on
Totally
year
understand.
close and then preparing for the auditors.
What's the preference of the committee? I'm just going to throw out July 15 and say, would that work for everybody so far? Cancel the vacation, please.
I don't take vacations.
Okay. And if the 22nd is better, or the 8th is better. Okay, we don't want to do that, because you got to be here.
You could beat Zoom.
Maybe not.
Is the 8th a possibility or not? 8th a possibility? JT? All right, let's say July 8th, okay? We'll be,
Kidding, I already circled 15.
I understand that. So we're going to end up with a separate meeting for that at a time that is appropriate. 6 o'clock here.
I need to look at 3 other calendars on the wall
That's-
in the office for what is booked before we can say where the location is.
All right, well.
I've gotten my hand slapped too many times.
Well, we're ways out.
Yeah.
Agenda and so forth have to be developed. Location will be verified, but
Yes.
we'll plan on the 8th of July, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Of July, okay? Everybody good?
Charlie, just a question. Was part of the purpose of the meeting to review the financials, that next meeting? Because we don't want to just get together to pick meeting dates.
Yes, but I think we got to get a schedule nailed. And I don't know when we can do financial review.
We're
What
going
are
to
you
get
asking
together
me?
to pick a schedule?
Pardon?
We'll have other things to talk about on the 8th besides picking the schedule, I'm assuming?
I think we're going to have a draft of the application process for nonprofits and other committees
And
ready.
the work that Karen and I are doing,
Work that Karen, you and John would be doing.
and John.
I think there will be plenty for us to do.
Okay.
But importantly, nail down a schedule.
Okay,
Is that fair?
yes.
Okay. Motion to adjourn, please.
Yeah, that was like, we did.
You moved it?
We did that already. Seconded.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning? Aye. Thank you all very much.